this will be our problem forever.
Okay.
That's their interpretation of it.
Yeah, that is an interpretation that immediately gets my hair on edge, and I don't think that's an accurate interpretation.
Well, I think, well, first of all, what the order does require are methane treatment systems in all of the homes, but it also requires that Cabot provide a supply of water that meets safe drinking water standards, or if they did pre-drill surveys, and I think I got 1 or 2 folks, for a limited number of parameters, provide water that was at least as good as what you had before. The methane treatment systems are obviously not supposed to be something that's going to be there forever. They're required to completely cease discharging methane into fresh groundwater. So as those wells are plugged and as the methane is eliminated, there's not going to be a need for methane treatment system. High iron and manganese levels, aluminum, those are all related to drilling activities through the aquifer and will dissipate over time. So while they do have to provide for individual treatment systems, they are ultimately obligated to ensure that the water that's coming into your home meets secondary and primary safe drinking water act standards. And I think that if you do ultimately refuse to allow them to install these treatment systems, it says on page 11 that if Cabot demonstrates to our satisfaction that an owner of the affected supply refused the whole house treatment system, they'll have been deemed to comply with this paragraph for such affected water supply.
So that's been interpreted by anyone that I've talked to that's looked at it to mean that if we don't agree with their proposed treatment system, that they can be deemed to have complied, and we'll waive our right. They can pull out the water buffaloes, and we've waived any right that we have from them, any obligation. They don't have any further obligation to provide us water now.
Okay, that again is an interpretation that has my hair setting up on edge, and that's not one that I support at this point at all. What I'd like to do is put the legal stuff aside for a moment and hear about the suggestion of a simple water well that would provide service to 14 homes, and see if that in fact may be a better way to solve the problem.
Yeah, right now, Secretary, it is conceptual. We have a couple things we've talked about. There is some areas to the outside the impact area that we've looked at as potential places where we could drill supply wells, a community supply well, a community supply well system, distribution system. It would be placed in that area and would serve the 14 residents and possibly have room for expansion. Because one of the things that concerns me the most is if someone else wants to move into the area and the aquifer is still impacted, if the sealing of the wells, of the gas wells, doesn't work or doesn't have the effect that you want as far as diminishing methane in the aquifer, and you're going to continue to have an issue with methane, and if someone wants to build a house or subdivide their land, they won't have a way to get drinking water that's clean. They could put a methane removal system on that house that's new, but just have the ability to expand and to, if the problem expands, if that problem does expand in different areas, then they can also expand the system as well. But preliminarily, the thought was to have one central system that would be outside the area that would supply all the residents. Another potential option
And the well would be outside of the impacted area.
Yeah. We'd have to do a study to take a look at the best location. But aside from that, we also talk about this to some degree if we could find other areas within the impacted area. But there's a couple of wells that we have in the impacted area that may actually not have methane in them at this point, but could potentially down the road if we decide to. It's more like a system that would be much more localized. Instead of having a single supply well system that's at a distance, these would be currently good wells within the impacted area that could supply all the houses. But our fear is doing that would actually draw methane into those wells potentially, and also impact those wells. So it would just depend on what the mitigation measures are for sealing the gas wells, how quickly that would have an effect on the drinking water aquifer, if at all. Because I guess what you're talking about because once they seal those wells, you anticipate that the methane would dissipate in the aquifer over time. If that doesn't occur, then we'd need a backup plan at least. And the community system would serve that. And we also serve expansion and would ensure that people have fresh drinking water.
Can I just ask a question about that sentence? What are you, like, proposing that Cabot would purchase the land that this well would sit on? Or, and then it would...
It would be a purchase or a lease. It could be similar to even like a gas lease, but it'd be a water lease instead. So it could be a private, or it could be a public lands that could be used for this.
We've been on the phone with a water treatment person and 2 different companies that do develop municipal water systems, and everyone I spoke to does have problems with the in-home water treatment system. I even spoke to the guy at Cabot who's supposed to put it in, and he explained that it's not common to be used in a home, that it's a quasi-industrial piece of equipment. One of the criticisms of our water treatment guy explained that unless the water is dropped from high enough, it has to shower down to get the methane out of it. So if you're not doing it from a high enough, if it's not a big enough system, you're not going to properly get off the methane. There's problems with turbulence in the water, turbidity in the water, because of the methane drives a lot of other sediment around. And the problem is that this system, they don't even propose putting a filter in it. You need a filter in it. Then once you need a filter in it, how often do you have to change the filter? When is the system going to break down? When is it going to get clogged? When is there going to be a spark that creates an explosion in somebody's house? There's also a rare situation where there can be a carcinogenic compound that's created as a result of the methane reacting to a mineral that could be in the water. All of that is described in this report. So there's a lot of reasons that we would be concerned about an in-house treatment center. Now, alternatively, if we created a central water system, you'd have a treatment center, but you'd have one treatment center. It wouldn't be in everybody's home. It would be of the appropriate size and magnitude. It would require one person who's qualified to come and keep an eye on it and make sure that it's operating properly, and it wouldn't create you needing to go into everybody's houses. And so for a lot of reasons, from a practical, long-term point of view, and there's, we're concerned that the way this sounds is this was supposed to be a long-term treatment, not a short-term answer. We don't want anything else but the water buffaloes until the problem is properly addressed. And so therefore, we're asking on this issue if you could get the order to extend those deadlines. We're concerned about those deadlines, and if they could be concerned while we continue to study this water issue and the DEP continues to study our proposals about it, and perhaps do their own investigation, we would ask that on the water treatment issue.
Okay, that's a very reasonable request for us to make to us, and we will entertain that very seriously. Take that back. Think that through. I mean, what our goal is to get this all water back on a permanent basis, and so we're looking for the best way to get that done as soon as possible. Let me ask you, why is that water looking that way? What's making that water?
What I believe is happening, this is my hypothesis, just the methane when it enters the drinking water aquifer managed to disrupt it immensely in a lot of locations, and whatever kind of clay minerals and sediment during the fractures of the drinking water aquifer get mobilized when the methane moves through it. And as you pump on the well, it simply pulls all those mobilized and churned up sediment in the drinking water. Just the fractures that feed the well, all the fractures that feed the well, and that's what you wind up in your well. So
Well, that's a theory shared by Mike O'Donnell,
Yeah.
as he talked to me about that as well. Obviously, with higher iron, it's going
it's
to
all,
turn in orange as well.
when you sample the water, you get higher aluminum, higher manganese. It's all the clay, it's all the metals you see, clay minerals that are being.
So again, what Mike, part of the theory that he had also was that by eliminating the methane into the aquifer, which they have to do. I mean, they cannot have wells that are leaking. And they're gonna have to plug those wells in a way that the shallow formation that's causing this problem is completely sealed off.
The shallow formation that's causing these problems, you know that for a fact?
Well,
I don't think that's established.
Well, it's gonna be plugged, whether it's shallow
Well,
or deep.
well, I don't think you should throw around, you know.
well, they're gonna plug off, they're gonna set a plug at the Marcellus. We also do know that there is shallow gas, and they're gonna have to deal with that as well.
Additionally, perhaps.
Correct, yes,
Okay.
not
All
one
right.
or the other, but
Just wanna clarify.
as according to the regulations, we have to seal off all producing formations and then isolate that from fresh groundwater, and that's what they're gonna have to do.
There's actually been some intention on their part to simply do the Marcellus plug and leave alone the shallower formations. They're gonna have to plug the well to isolate all gas, regardless of where it's at.
Scott?
Stop it with
The norm is
Does this not create more pressure and we're gonna have more explosions when you seal off those wells?
Well, that shallow formation was there for, centuries, hundreds of thousands of years.
But we never had any problem.
Correct, and but by putting that cement around there, you basically return to its original condition. You are isolating it within the formation that it was residing on for millions of years, not hundreds of thousands of years, but millions of years, and keeping it back in that same geologic formation.
Can
it.
I?
And they're gonna have to do, I'm not an engineer, and they are gonna have to do this in a manner.
Plugging causing any issues. Now, recently, a number of us had, something happen to our water while they were plugging the Guestford well. It happened to the house next to me and on the other side of me. We had bubbles and foaming and odor to our water.
Which gets for 9 or
Is that what they plugged?
maybe that's 3N or everything.
That's two of them that they have to plug in, I can't recall.
So it wasn't this weekend, it was the previous weekend, whatever their activities were. I mean, is it connected, but all of a sudden we had something new coming into our water?
The process, what they're doing is just putting cement down in there. And so I smelled your water at Clark Summit, and it didn't remind me of anything other than just kind of a chemical smell. So I don't know what it would be that would have caused that. The issue that could happen while we're in the process of plugging, you're going to be down in that fresh groundwater aquifer. They're going to actually, in my opinion, have to mill out the steel casing and the cement that's in there now so that they get a good cement plug through that producing formation. So you have the potential, I suppose, for some, well, you're down so deep. That's just what's so surprising to me. You've got a steel pipe that's going from the surface all the way down to the Marcellus, and it's cemented on the back side. And right now what they're doing is putting cement down into that steel pipe. So how it would be affecting fresh
3
ground.
different houses simultaneously when they're doing it.
What happened?
We had, Suzanne, do you want to speak to your water?
Sure. Sunday, the 25th, we turn on the water about 10 o'clock at night, and out comes foamy bubbles, like really, really foamy.
Very soap.
Yeah.
Smell like turpentine.
And we just shut everything down from there and just waited till Michael Donald came to test. But by the time y'all get there, run the waters and all, I can't find evidence like we did that evening. But all it makes us feel is what else is in the water at one particular time, and was it there earlier when I didn't notice? I mean, there's all those there's never a safety factor there. It's not like, poof, it's gone, it's not soapy no more. You never expected that. So now, where does it come? And not only did it come out of our pipes, but we looked along our creeks, our culverts, it's coming from both directions across the street, towards us this way, down our culvert, into our pond, and Bergen Creek, which isn't even connected to across the street and down. You see foamy, not natural foam, by the way, because we spoke with that with Michael Donald. We understand organic foam, but we're talking bubbles, soapy bubbles.
Well, it sounds like surfactant, doesn't it?
Sounds like what?
Doesn't it sound like it's surfactants?
Surfactants can have, that's what they do to water.
Okay, so the surfactants that are used in the drilling process, doesn't it sound like it's got into their water?
I'm know Mike took samples from the taps, as well as, I think he took a sample from the collected water as well, right?
No,
I think that's what he told me, that he collected water samples even from, if somebody had like a jar or something like that.
maybe Victoria, not mine. Victoria, did you hear me?
Mike said to me that not only did he get water from the taps, but he also took water that folks had collected for analysis as well.
I had some in a bottle, I think he took some of that also.
Okay.
But when he was there, it wasn't bubbling.
Just from a control point of view, how do you know that whatever procedures they're using now to plug up these wells is the right kind of procedure to plug them up, that they're really going about that in the most professional way possible?
Well, we've got our regulations that specify what they're supposed to do, and when they say we're done, we're going to review the procedures that they in fact did, and we'll have a discussion about whether it was effective or not. So at the moment, they're still in the process of doing it. The standard is pretty straightforward. Methane cannot be escaping these wells, and we know where some of the producing formations are at because they ran logs on these things. So we'll have to look at what they've in fact done to determine whether or not the plugging job that they did meets their requirements. But right now, we're going to let them go through their plugging procedures, and we'll be the ones that hold them accountable for whether or not they've achieved it or not. If they fail to keep methane from getting out of the wells, they're in violation of the consent order.
Then you took 3 wells in the water.
We have the ELE 4 has to have a remedial job done to it. They're trying to put in cement on the backside of the intermediate basin. We call it a remedial squeeze job. And they'll be given an opportunity to demonstrate that methane is not migrating from that well after they do this remedial squeeze job there. The Baker 1, Guestford 3, and Guestford 9 all have to be plugged. You've also got some wells that are going to need other remediation work. If they can't fix them, they're going to be plugging those as well.
There's 10 other wells that we've identified so far that we believe could be the source of
Well,
the.
there are 14 altogether, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
There's
There's 4 that we've already identified and have actually been taken on.
So plug means permanently closed, right?
Correct.
And does anyone have any questions about that? Because I know some of these wells affect some people from an income point of view. I don't know if anyone has a question or concern that they want to ask at this point.
What were they doing on Guestford 3 and 9 for the last 2 weeks?
Plugging wells.
Are they plugged or no?
I have not received notification that they've finished those jobs.
They're in the process.
There's no inspector on site at all, this potentially, you know?
Steve Watson, and I know that has been checking in on them, but obviously he's not there constantly. But we're very interested in the plugging procedures that they're employing, because as the Secretary mentioned, we have some questions as to whether they're going to be doing the job completely the way we think it needs to be done. And again, this is targeting the shallow formations that we believe are the real problem, in addition to plugging them ourselves. So we're keeping a very close eye.
And the bottom line though for us is the results. It's not frankly up to us to figure out how to plug the well. That's their problem. And what is up to us is to make sure that there isn't gas escaping. And if there's gas escaping, whatever they did wasn't good enough. And we need to go back and do it until it is good enough. It's just not, we're not in a position to do the actual engineering and the design work and take all that responsibility. That's their responsibility. But we, working with you, need to determine whether what they've done has fixed the problem or not. That's our responsibility, working with you. So that's how we're sort of dividing up what gets done here.
The 3 wells are already being plugged, correct? I guess what we would like, if possible, on this issue is if there were going to be a determination either that the problem is solved or what to do next if it doesn't solve the problem, whether to plug other wells or take another approach, we would like to be consulted and have an opportunity to respond, like a month response, so that we can talk to engineers ourselves and give you our 2 cents, if it's worth that, on whatever notions before, a resolution.
Consider
We'd
that.
like to be as a part of the process, just like cabinets as part of the
Consider that.
process.
At this point, I think it's important to state, and I hope I didn't miss this, but we represent 11 of the affected families. So there are other people in the room, there are 3 other families that may speak, that we're not speaking for, who can speak for themselves.
Everybody's meeting.
Everybody's.
I have a question. My mill isn't as affected as some of the other people, but I'm right in the center of Carter Road. I spoke to someone who did pre-tests for cabins before they started. And one thing that's been coming up is the idea that we weren't pre-tested, but we were, and we weren't pre-tested for methane. I talked to the guy who did it, he said that we were, because that's been coming out in some of the press releases, and that we weren't pre-tested, and for all they know, we always had methane in our water. But we definitely saw a definite change. Everybody, this was not the way it was before. And the other thing that we're wondering about is, he said that when the wells got plugged up, there's a pressure from that gas underground, and it had to go somewhere, and he was concerned that it would really worsen the situation when the wells got plugged up, because it would be, increasing the pressure, it would probably come up either into our water or somewhere else. Is that a possibility?
Well, first of all, this was one of the many bad business practices that Cabot's engaged in, but by not testing for methane,
In some cases.
they're presumed to have caused contamination. I know that in some areas in Pennsylvania that there can be dissolved methane in people's drinking water. You don't check for it, it's kind of like, you might as well put it there. So they put themselves into a very, very bad position by not testing for doing a comprehensive pre-drilling survey. The other issue that you're talking about, which is pressure on the well itself, certainly by reducing gas from a formation, you reduce the pressure of that formation. That's what I think the Guestford 9 was all about. It wasn't a Marcellus well. It's either the 3 or the 9, I get confused. It was there to try and reduce the pressure on that shallow producing formation so they wouldn't see as much problems with all the other wells that they have here, but they even screwed that one up. So by producing, it does reduce pressure in the formation, but the plug is designed to keep the pressure within that formation. Just like the pressure was always greater than Marcellus before they go in and drill it and frack it. But by plugging it up, it's going to keep the gas now within that formation. And so it's not going to all of a sudden surge in pressure and find new ways to get to the surface. It's a competent formation that's held the gas for hundreds of millions of years, and it's going to continue to do so.
You know, it's been punctured so many times.
Well, it's punctured in a very discrete location, and it's with horizontal drilling or even vertical wells. You've basically put a hole right in the top of the formation, and you still have that seal, that cap rock that sits on top of the entire shale that's kept that gas in the formation for hundreds of millions of years. Just a quick geology. I mean, you could probably tell it. This is the source rock for gas. It's actually made the gas. Unlike sandstone formations that are now homes for gas that were generated by other rock, the Marcellus itself made it and kept it in place, which is why it's got so much in it. It is the organic material that actually produced it. So it's had nowhere to go for hundreds of millions of years. By sealing, you've got a steel pipe with concrete and now more concrete. And it's going to keep that hole, that small diameter hole that's been poked into the middle of it, sealed off and not allow methane to leak anywhere.
It sounds like very similar to the explanation that we got at the very beginning before they drilled. And that all made sense to us, but then we had situations like Norma Parentino's situation, I mean, that just seemed like totally unbelievable that that could even happen, and yet it did.
But they did a terrible job. They did a terrible job on dealing with those, the lower formations.
I want to first make sure we don't lose track of what you told us, which is, in your case, your well was tested. So I want us to make sure that we interview you, if you would cooperate with us, to find out what it was tested, and if you got the results, and then you saw increases beyond the testing. I mean, I think that's very useful for us, because while for us legally it doesn't matter whether it was tested or not at this point, because it's presumed at this point that they caused
Well,
it.
it does matter, because Cabot can convey this message.
Yeah, I understand that. You interrupted them.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. What I was trying to say, in terms of what we're doing with them and their enforcement, it doesn't matter. In terms of the press release concern that you're saying, and how CAB is trying to deflect some of the blame, quote unquote, of responsibility, it does matter. And that's why I'm interested in making sure that we get the details. So I would like offline for us to get those details so that we can, in fact, have that as part of our discussion with these folks.
Well, if you're referring to what I said about the pretest, our pretest came back perfectly fine. Absolutely no methane, absolutely nothing in it.
Oh, so they checked for it, didn't find any. And
Yeah,
now
they
you
didn't
got
find
it.
any in it.
I want that.
And I really shouldn't speak for other people on our road, but he did tell me that he didn't find it on our road in any of the wells he checked at.
Did they didn't provide you with the test results?
They didn't give us the test results for a very long time. We didn't get any results back from that pretest until after Norma's well blew up. And I'm not even sure, I think it was even some months after that before we got our test results back. And we were pretty anxiously waiting, especially after Norma's well blew up. But even before that, Sotner's well had gotten contaminated, and Carter's, and we knew that. And so we were wondering what was going on. And we didn't get those pretest results back until quite a ways later, and they did not say anything on them about the methane test. And that seems really significant to me, because that's what we were looking for. And it wasn't on there, it's not on the report. And some of the other things he told me he tested for weren't on the report either. Apparently that report went through Cabot, and they...
Who, you have the name of the person?
Yeah, it was Mr. Farnham, Daniel Farnham from Farnham and Associates, and he was working for Northeast Environmental at the time. That's who they contracted to do the pretest.
Well, he should still have that information.
He does still have the information. He told me he had.
He still works for Northeast Environmental?
Yeah, he's in that, well, he sort of works, he works for them as an independent contractor. He's in the Scranton phone book under Farnham and Associates.
There's a lab that does the testing for them.
And he lives in Hot Bottom.
It's very helpful.
We had ours pre-tested. It was, the test was done, the water sample was taken in July. They started drilling Deptford number 2, when, 1st of September, sometime in September. In October, our water went bad. In November, we got the pre-test results back. So, we did have a pre-test. But,
Right, I think your pretested question is whether methane was pretested, and obviously we want to explore that more. There were definitely pretests, and the question is whether methane was pretested.
They might not have pretested everybody here, but if they didn't, that's negligence on their part, not on ours, so.
they didn't have to pre-test unless your water well was within 1,000 feet of the well.
Mine 541.
How much, sir?
541, and not pretest my well.
Again, that was, any well driller that doesn't pre-test, I actually think they should be sampling half a mile. Because by not doing that, you are completely, this is one of the big, we know that they're causing this problem. But when you've got a law that says you are presumed to have caused it, you can't get out of it because you didn't pre-test, why, it's just a profoundly bad business practice. It's stupidity not to do that. So they were dumb not to do it. And it's one of the things that is, underpinning our decision to have this pervasive order to restore all of these supplies.
Yes, I think Doug looked at the pre-test results that have been given to the DEP by Cabot, right?
Well, I saw ones from prior, not from the DEP quality. But it was, there wasn't the methane, I don't think I had methane results from that time period for pre-drill.
Right, I mean, what I'm saying is that you looked at what we got some records from you under the Freedom of Information Act, and we gave them to Doug, and that's the only place we would have had pre-test results. We had some from some of our clients too,
Yeah,
right?
we had some from some of the clients.
And then you've looked at the ones that you've received from Cabot, correct? And you're saying you don't have any of those kind of records, or you're not sure?
I actually don't think they tested for methane at all.
That's
But-
what your record shows.
It's my recollection of.
Like your record shows. All right, I'm just trying to have the facts straight for all of us.
Victoria, did you want to say something?
On the permitting, wouldn't DEP have to be informed if I'm 710 feet from where they're going to drill a gas well? On the permit process, wasn't there supposed to be notification to the people that were within 1,000 feet? Because we didn't get that notification.
The law requires that if you have a water supply within 1,000 feet of the gas well, then you should have gotten a plat.
We did not, did not.
There's at least 3
Did not.
Did not.
Like after the fact.
Well, that's just one more example in a long litany of what went on. And that bothers me greatly, and obviously the results here are very, very troubling. So I appreciate you letting me know that.
Plus the signs anyway, they're, on all mine, they're all expired.
The well tags
Where it says residual water, consumption residual water, all of those are all expired.
of the water they're providing you.
I guess so.
I'm not
It
really
comes,
sure
it
where
comes
the
out of
sign
our
is.
spring. She was talking about, the numbers on it and stuff.
Okay.
You know the signs that they put out there that have residual water for EDP3 or P1, whatever that means?
Oh, the residual water from the drilling.
Yeah.
What do you?
Because those are expired. They have, the 3 signs that they have this drilling here, this is belonging to your well number, and then they have that other thing, another sign that says residual water on it, residual water waste. They have a sign next to each one of the taps, to the landowners, number of their wells. All of those are expired. Because I have some on our property and they're all expired.
Which means.
Well, we don't really require them to put up signs for the residual waste impoundments, so
We'll check that.
Have to find out more about
Yeah,
the
because,
signs of
I
this
mean,
issue.
why are they posting them if they don't mean
I
anything?
think they're doing it just to let people know, like, what is that? Oh, it's the Cabot.
Yeah, well, they have expiration dates, and I haven't seen higher when someone test my water.
Okay.
And I have 2 wells right there by my house. How far do you think that is? How far do you think, 50 Bill? 50 feet? Bill, how far is those 2 wells from the house?
I think it's 400 people and the other's probably about 600.
Oh, the thermogenic versus.
Yes.
Could you give some further testing on methane, just for your information? Could you explain that, Doug?
Yeah, it was the same, the analysis that you did on the methane of the isotech laboratories, just to confirm whether or not it's thermogenic or biogenic.
Right.
And that was confirmed for two of the plants.
We didn't test all of them.
No, just
The 2 that we tested, and say was, because it's an expensive test, but confirmed that it was thermogenic. So 100% of the ones we tested came.
Yeah.
Which indicates that it's.
That they caused the problem. That's another reason why we're pointing the finger at Cabot. Some of the wells that have methane in them naturally are microbial in nature, and obviously that cannot come from a gas-producing formation. So.
Could you explain what you just said?
Like microbial gas, like a landfill, produces a lot of methane. It's not produced by thermogenic forces. It's produced by bugs that give it off as a byproduct. And there's a lot in some of these alluvial soils. You can have microbes living in there that generate methane gas. and it produces a distinct signature than does methane produced through geologic forces. And the test results you ran show that the gas that is in your water wells are coming from somewhere much deeper than would be existing naturally within an aquifer.
Wouldn't they test positive for bacteria then? Because we're testing 0 bacteria.
I don't know. I guess, I don't know.
That has something to make the microbes free.
So the next, we tried to list some issues on a priority basis, just what was most important. So the most immediate was the water treatment, I think we talked about that. And
We owe you, we get back to you on your specific request to extend the deadline.
extend the deadline so that.
So we have more time to work on this.
Correct, and that we would be included in the circle of participating as much on this issue as any, considering this has to do with our clients.
And then the flooding, also be consulted before we do the flooding.
Correct, just so that we can have a seat at the table and maybe give you some engineering input if we feel this would be something.
How do you test for that gas once they're plugged? Because, a lot of our wells are offline right now, so they're just sitting there idle. And once you start pumping water out of the well, you're dropping your water level down, then the gas comes back in. So is that what you're gonna do?
Again, so, and the key point here is that no more gas will be coming into that aquifer. And obviously, as you use your water, if methane continues to be present, then they haven't stopped the flow of natural gas into the aquifer.
Well, how long is it gonna take for that aquifer to eliminate that?
I don't know. I know it's not going to be days. Well, I don't know that either, but it could be less time. I think it would be significantly less than that.
You're right to ask all those questions. You're right to ask all those questions. And the honest answer, that anybody, I know you know. And the honest answer that we can give you is nobody absolutely knows. On the other hand, sitting where we're at and doing nothing.
You gotta start somewhere.
Right, and if anybody's got a better idea about where to start with trying to fix this problem, I'm all ears. So we're starting somewhere. We hope that solves the problem as quickly as possible, but the honest answer is nobody in this room knows the answer to that. And we're going to have to try this and see where we get. If that doesn't get us where we need to be, then we got to go to the next step.
It shouldn't take you this long to get this, to get where we're at now. I mean, this is 20 months. What happened? What was the problem? Why did it take that long for anybody to hear us? And then get it spread out farther and farther. I mean, if you would have hit this thing, nipped it in the bud right in the beginning, this wouldn't have happened to so many people. Now that you waited so long, look how many people we have now.
I will personally take the responsibility, and that is at this point, what I can tell you is I'll take the responsibility, and from here, we're on these people like a hammer on these folks. I can say...
A foot on their neck.
A foot on the neck. I can say that we did a number of other things before this, which is true. It wasn't enough. It didn't get their attention. I very frankly didn't realize exactly what kind of corporate animal we were dealing with. That's God honest truth.
We were ready to begin what they were like.
Definitely suffering.
I mean, we went to the media, nobody would even listen to us. I mean, I don't know how many times I made phone calls. I mean, just fell on deaf ears.
Yeah.
And now look what we got.
I again, take responsibility. You are right to be angry. I feel like in so many ways that this company took you and others for a very, very bad ride. And I guess I'm not sure we've got through to them just yet. You're right. I'm not so sure we're through to them just yet.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, when they put in the newspaper, blatantly saying, what was it, I just read in that newspaper article?
Right there.
Yeah, hard to swallow, hard to swallow. DEP,
This is probably going to be
there
my
you go,
blood.
DEP is what they said in an article that I read. There you go.
What date is this
That they're arrogant, they're,
4/21?
they just have no clue. But we've been for, we've suffered.
You don't care.
And they went around and discredited us
Yep.
to each other. They went around and talked to different neighbors about each other and discredited their stories and made everybody think that everybody else was a nutcase and stuff like that.
Well, I read some things like this, and in one case even worse than this, and was asked to respond to what they had said by the reporter, and I said that I was quote unquote personally offended by what Cabot had told the reporters about our action. I had said that they simply just don't get it, apparently. So, at any rate, you're right to be angry. And I'm one of the people that you have a right to be angry with about this. I'm not going to give you excuses about what happened and what the set of actions were which didn't get their attention. I can't even sit here and tell you that now that we dropped the hammer on them that I've for sure got their attention. I will tell you this, I've got them by the neck and I'm not letting go until they fix this damn problem. I'll tell you that from here.
Mr. Hank, I might say one thing to you. You at least admit this. Our senators, our representatives, anybody in our community is one of us.
You're
They
not.
won't see any kindness.
Well,
They
you're
don't
not.
try to help anyone.
You're not.
I have to congratulate you for your job.
You're not. You're not.
Can I ask?
We know that, and I'll tell you.
It's a money deal.
Yeah, and so far it's proven that way.
They're gonna take our money on it.
Mrs. Peel?
Can I just ask a question? I mean, do you, in your experience with this, feel that any of these companies do it the right way and that there is a right and safe way to do this? I mean, is what Cabot doing typical of all the companies, or is it just Cabot is doing it so wrong and other companies are doing it
Good
right?
question, good question. And the answer is that Cabot right now is by far and away the worst, by far and away the worst. They're in a class by themselves. There are some companies that I would say have to do it close as possible to the quote-unquote right way. And then there are some folks in between those two, meaning some very good companies that do take pride in their work, do world-class work, do it consistently well. Cabot is, as I said, far end from those folks. They've done consistently shoddy work. And
Have you isolated that to one specific drilling company that they're using, or is it across the drilling companies that they're using? Like when you say this GDS well is bad, but this Sam Jack well is good, or based upon the companies they use to drill?
well, I want to say that right now, we are judging the company regardless of who they contract with. That for us, it's not necessarily.
But it's not like
It's not-
all the
I'm
three
not-
wells you're plugging aren't all done GDS necessarily, or were they, or?
Do you want to speak?
Well, I can speak about GDS slightly, because I looked it up in the beginning of the lawsuit. GDS is owned by Cabot.
I know that. But what I'm saying is do they do more shoddy work than if they had a Sam Jack or a Halliburton or somebody else coming in and doing the drilling for them?
And for us, they're responsible for all of their vendors and all of their contractors, whether they own them or don't own them.
Right.
Again, we're not in a position to judge anything other than the bottom line result. That's what we're in a position. Was there a spill? Is there methane in the water or not? That's what we can see and know and judge. And then we're in a position of saying, fix the problem. And by the way, spend all the money necessary to fix the problem.
But in my conversations with Scott, even though we're named as one of the 14 affected families, our issue is, or has not been necessarily to this point, a methane issue. There are other issues. So, but that's all going to fall under this order?
They are required, there's a specific section that's referenced on page 11 of the modified consent order, and it references 25 PA code 7851D. And that says that they have to provide you with water that meets that standard. And that standard is safe drinking water at levels If they did a pre-drill and they said your pH was 8, well, they don't need to provide you with 7 because the pre-existing said 8. But that's what the law says. If they didn't do the pre-drill for a contaminant that's part of the Safe Drinking Water Act, it has to meet the Safe Drinking Water Act standards, and that's in there and it applies to your well.
By the way, you talk about their culture, and we did approach them about to work together and listen to us on our alternative solutions for water treatment. And when I was talking to their outside counsel, everything that I said seemed logical and sensible to him. And then Mr. Cunningham got on the phone, you probably heard that name, and his remark was, first you have to sign a letter that says you're rejecting our water answer. In other words, they wanted to put us in a corner so that they were deemed absolved from having to work with us on any water solution or correction.
They're using it as a shield.
And so there was nothing constructive in April. It just felt like saying that when you said you wonder whether they even get this. I'm talking today, and I'm talking about a conversation last week. And this has to do with bringing to our clients potable water in a way that's reasonable. You're not putting, a little industry in the basement. And,
I share exactly those concerns, which frankly shocks me. It shocks me that at this point, given all the enforcement we've done, late, perhaps inadequate, but this is heavy enforcement at this point. It shocks me that we don't have them absolutely to a point where they say, what does it take to fix this problem? And let me work with everybody to get the problem fixed. I'm not convinced at all that they're there yet.
Mr. Schweitzer, they're trying to...
It's not a surprise, really. When you think about it, I think most of the people in this room know that multiple violations were never fined by DEP, multiple times. And if you would find them, not only would you've gotten their attention, but now you would have the money to have more than a couple inspectors in the area. It's ridiculous the amount of inspectors that you have. You should have somebody there 24 hours a day when there's any environmentally dangerous operations going on. Because they do stuff when you aren't there. And that really falls into the next two things. You're talking about spill containment, waste disposal. Where's that stuff going? If you have people there all the time, you'd be surprised to see what goes on. And there is all that potential for income that you had for your department that you just turned your back on. And it did two things. You don't have the money to run an operation the way you should. And yeah, we've got away with that stuff for so long, it's not surprising that they operate the way they are. That's really all I have to say.
No, that's fair. And what I can say is at this point, we're in the process of hiring another 68 people for the oil and gas staff.
Inspectors we're talking about.
No,
People out in the field, not somebody sitting behind a desk.
Hold on.
Okay? Somebody sitting behind a desk, because that's basically what you're doing.
No, and that is absolutely fair. And we're hiring 68 other folks, and many of them will be inspectors, and many of them will be out there. Now, I will tell you this also, there's no way that we're ever going to be in a position that we're going to have somebody, a state employee, on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I'm talking about when you're drilling or fracking.
No, okay.
Okay.
And
there's no reason why you couldn't. You certainly should have enough money to do it.
Certainly at the time of drilling, we're in fact increasing the possibility and the probability that we're going to be there. I want you to talk about where we're headed with the extra 68 folks.
Three-quarters of them are involved in inspection, whether they're water quality specialists, whether they're our engineers and geologists dealing with some of the erosion and sediment control issues, as well as the on-site issues, the oil and gas inspectors themselves. Just by way of example, Colorado has about the same number of rigs working as Pennsylvania. You have 75 people in the entire program. We're going to have 193. So we've got a state that's basically, and there, if you look at Colorado, drilling occurs in all four corners. So we've got a state that's twice, half as big. We're going to have more than...
How many people you got right now?
125.
How many inspectors?
Again, it's about it's a three-quarter effect ratio. We just don't have very many people, but believe me, I hear enough from the folks that are working in the file rooms and the clerical staff that there's not enough people there doing those
So
kinds of jobs.
we are hiring more.
Yeah.
We're up to be up to
Talk to the people that are
190.
inspectors, will tell you there's about 4.
Yeah.
And
they all line
Steve
up?
Watson and, no, they've got us, you're right, Steve Watson
So your
and
ratio
Michael
is
O'Donnell's
way
got a big
off.
area.
Way off. Why?
In terms of hiring even more,
Yeah, we're gonna definitely need more.
hold on a second. We're going to be at 193 as soon as we can hire the 68. We are going to.
How many field people is what we really want to know? Isn't that what we really want to know? How many people are actually out in the field?
Yeah, 3/4 of them are get out in the field and have that as their primary responsibility. And I will also tell you that we can and will need to hire even more than that. We hired 37 in 2009, we're hiring 68 in 2010, and we will need to hire even more in 2011. That's absolutely the case.
Well, the potential fines for Cabot, I'd be able to pay for all of them, sure.
The fines.
It's not going to be different when they move out of this area. You know, I mean,
Where's Springville?
it's not going to change.
I will tell you this, it better change, well, Cabot's not going to do business in Pennsylvania. All right, so you know, we are not going to just consistently chase them across Pennsylvania or through Susquehanna County and find them as every step they go. They are going to get to a point where they operate right or they don't operate anymore. I mean, we can't play, they've had more than enough time. They've had 20 months to get to the right place. And it's not, we're no longer in the game of finding these people $200,000 or $50,000 or $500,000 and expecting that to work. It doesn't work with these folks.
That's like 10 cents to those guys.
Well, that's part of the problem. So, you know, the plugging the wells is not 10 cents to those folks. That's some serious money.
But that all affects the people that live there.
Absolutely.
Right.
And
All right,
so
they took it out of our checks.
where they put everybody is that it's down to this is the choice. They either operate the right way or they don't operate. End of story. So that's where we've got to at this point.
When do they get that automated?
Well, they've been basically told that automated, and this is the first real test. Are they going to fix this problem? We're holding every other permit for the new application. We're not giving them any more permits until they fix this problem.
How does that get defined? They don't get new permits, but if we understand the moratorium, and just, they can continue to operate the 50-plus wells that they drill, that there's no recognized problem with, they can continue to operate those and take every day, right? There's no moratorium.
The permits which were already granted prior to this order, we continue to hold and continue to use. There are something like, I think it was 29 applications for new permits pending before the department at the time of this order was entered. Those 29 will be held. There will be no processing of those 29 applications until this matter is resolved to our satisfaction.
I ask another follow-up?
No, it's fine.
Just because it dovetails with that. In addition to them solving this problem, we had a problem looking into the future, that assuming that where there's drilling, there's going to be accidents a la the Gulf of Mexico, that how much drilling can a community absorb? And so the question was, is it really a good idea from an environmental impact point of view to give these permits, even if you were looking at a better company, a better performing company than Cabot? And do you look at that issue?
Under the current law in the state, the cumulative impacts are not considered under the Oil and Gas Act, which is the state law that we operate on. And obviously, most of these permits are granted to for drilling on private landowners' property. And there is that balance that is at issue here. Some other states, and to my knowledge, sort of deal with that tension by involving or going to a policy called pooling, which Scott can talk to you a little bit about, which is in an effort to try to space out the drilling so that you don't, in fact, get actual drilling operations every 100 yards or some ridiculous concentration. In fact, it is spread out more, less dense, and then this pooling policy encourages that to occur. The state law right now actually doesn't provide for pooling. It's actually one of the requests that the industry, broadly speaking, has asked for. It's asked for a pooling policy in Pennsylvania. And this may be a situation where one of the industry requests would actually benefit the environment and protect landowners. That's one of the things that we have an open mind about. We'd like to work constructively with the industry as well as landowners, as well as environmental organizations and others on that.
Well, if we could be spokespeople on that issue, in front of the legislature, call us, we're all over it to help you, and as an anecdotal example.
How does that work with people that don't want to lease? Forced pooling, how does that work?
Well, you're right to ask about the details of what pooling matters, or what pooling would be. There is variations of pooling, and a long conversation, and we haven't even really started that conversation in any serious way. It has been an issue raised, like you've all raised it here, in general terms. Quote unquote, the industry has raised it in general terms. Some environmental organizations have raised it in general terms. But to my knowledge, at any rate, there's no bill in the legislature which is directly addressing it. I haven't seen any serious detailed proposal which would begin to provide the level of detail that would answer your question.
How far do you have to go before there's that cutoff going? And when are they going to get to the point where they're going to say you have to stop?
First, there are no spacing restrictions in the Oil and Gas Act, and this is the law that really just applies to the Marcellus. So the question of how many wells is too many isn't answered by that act. The other thing is, if you look specifically and the reasons why we can deny a well permit, it's tailored very narrowly. Basically, the well site itself is going to be a violation of the Oil and Gas Act. The operator is not in compliance with the DEP order, and they haven't gone to court and they've gotten some kind of stay of that order. So right now, for example, Cabot is in compliance with our order to fix this problem. When they are not, we will have authority to deny well permits based on that. But the statute describes very particularly and very narrowly what our authorities are to deny well permits.
Will it be just in this limited area, or will it be everywhere, like in the state?
It applies to the operator. It applies to an operator.
Anywhere in the state that they were applying for a permit, if they were in violation, we would have authority to
That sounds more like it.
Turn them down.
Even with them being outside of that area that we're in, I think I live pretty much right in the middle of that, and I still hear an awful lot of noise. They're still really working. It's not that far.
Yeah, where they have existing permits, that area, we're holding the permits that they've applied for. So,
The reason that is that as part of the original consent order agreement where they had to pay $120,000, and they should have had the water fixed March 31st, but didn't. Submitted to us casing plans of how they're running their wells, and since that time, we've that were drilled before we put this new drilling requirement.
What is the oldest date that you might start planting more of these claims?
we would have to,
I mean, it's a curious interplay here.
well, the intention, maybe not fully executed completely, and you've asked us to go back and look, and we're going to go look. The intention is to get you all permanent potable water. We've been trying to do that without success for now months and months and months. Now, I'm frustrated. I know I'm not as frustrated as you folks who have to live with this crappy water, but I can assure you I'm frustrated about it. So that was the intention. And to the extent that the 30-day deadline is actually counterproductive to our intention, which is what you've suggested, we will take that back and we will look at that and revisit that question. And you might well be right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Leslie.
But can you see from the resident's standpoint how audacious that seems, that a regulatory agency would actually dictate to a private company that they must enter a private residence and place a quasi-industrial unit in the home? Has that ever happened before?
Yes, it's actually having these treatment systems in for whether it's mining impacts or other areas, it's a common remedy for when we don't have a community water system in place.
So, okay.
And then we actually have a court case litigated right now with this exact same issue where
It's being litigated?
it was just resolved. The operator was actually suing us for making him put in treatment system.
We often get, I believe it or not, we often get sued by operators, and on the grounds that we're requiring too much of them. That's not unheard of in our business. But look,
Is there a way for us to, I mean, I'm not quite sure what it means when they plug the wells and they're fine with it. Is there a way for us to get 30 days heads up that you're about to grant permits again?
sure.
Or even 45 days heads up, you know?
We can let you,
That's a
the
long
best
way.
the best I can do is know when we get permits in, and then also the indication of when we're going to issue permits.
That would be
But when we're, if we get to the point, it's an if we get to the point that the 29 applications are going to be processed, it's not a when, it's an if and when we get to that point, we'll give you 30 days notice that we're in the process of doing it.
Thank you.
And one of the things I got, the biggest thing, the con I got with these systems is, I have a system in my house. They added one piece after the next, after the next, after the next, so I got a basement full of stuff, right? Now, this system must not be working, or you guys wouldn't have taken it offline.
And besides that, it's very invasive, and I know the one that you're proposing would be too.
Yes.
I can't handle it no more, I really can't.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to have it in their
I
house.
can't take
You
it.
have people coming through your house all the time.
All the time. And who cleans up after them all the time? It's us, you
Drop
know?
down.
You gotta be there all the time, I mean, it's
What
just,
if there's an elderly person, and what if there's a, you know, if there's one treatment center outside the home, it will avoid all these problems.
besides, it doesn't really work that, I mean, why else would you guys take it off? If it was doing that great a job?
And I'm sorry, I really am fed up, I'm sick of it.
Also,
I
let me
just
give you
can't deal
another,
with it no more.
let me give you another logical thing. 2 or 3 of the wells are extraordinary, and I don't think that's in that report, but I know this one. 2 of the 3 of the wells are extraordinarily high methane. Why would you go to the trouble of wanting to even bother to treat them, if you know what I'm saying? There's so much methane that you've got to remove from those wells, and the situations are explosive. So right there, you've got a few homes that maybe it's not a great idea to even work with those wells. Just bringing it up. But I wanted to add something else.
Can you make sure we know which 2 or 3 homes are in that circumstance?
Do you know which are the 2 or 3 with the highest, very extraordinarily high levels?
All from our sampling we did, yeah, there were, of the 10 that were sampled, 9 contained methane. The 2, I think, were both Scott and Bell Ely for the highest.
They were thousands and thousands, but there were others that were very
Yeah,
considerable.
consistently over 1,000.
Well, first of all, obviously, the well plugging will eliminate additional sources of methane. And obviously, if the treatment system does not eliminate the methane to the levels that we specified, then that system isn't working. And I think we do need to, we're obviously going to be examining the rest of the order in itself, but I think keeping the methane out of the drinking water is the key. And it ultimately resolves all the other
But
issues.
there's also turbidity coming out of it, so it's also the filters.
As Greg mentioned, we were talking about methane charging, not causing.
We have some really good science, some really good geology. We think we know what the best first steps are to fixing this problem. We have an idea what the second steps are if the first steps don't fix it. But a horrible situation that we're all in, nobody has an absolute guarantee that any one of these steps is going to work or when they're going to work. And I will be the first to say it here. I wish I could sit here and say I know exactly what will fix this when. Nobody can tell you that. What I can guarantee you is that we will take all steps that we can come up with in order to fix this problem. And that's the very best, I think, that any of us can do at this point. We'll put our thinking caps together, we'll talk with you, we'll get your ideas, we'll get Cabot's ideas, we'll get everybody's ideas. And the goal, of course, is to get the methane out, to get the turbidity down, to get the sediment out of the water, get the iron and manganese out of the water, have your water restored. That's the goal. And
But
we're
a
going to...
balance with what's in their homes too. With
I understand, you made a very good point.
You know,
You raised your concerns about
what
that.
people live with, you know.
A very fair point, and we're going to take that back.
And until that happens, they're gonna keep on supplying us with the water, right?
You, absolutely, until you have a permanent supply of water, you are going to get the buffaloes. Our goal, of course, is to get the buffaloes gone because we have a permanent supply of water. So we're gonna work with you to have that problem fixed. Okay. And you've raised concerns about the deadline. You've raised concerns about invasive nature and some other concerns. That's why I came up here tonight to listen to this. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to sit down with people at the department and talk this through. I'm going to then pick up the phone and we're going to be talking with Cabot about what we need to do here. All right?
When it says there's never been any proven, or you find it often in websites or the oil industry, there's never been a proven case of water contamination from natural gas well drilling. What are they referring to the proven?
They're typically talking about the actual frac chemicals going down the well in the process of fracking the shale, then returning and migrating into somebody's drinking water. That's not referring to what you've had occur to you, which is gas being freed in the drilling process, not isolated appropriately, moving through the geology, entering the water, creating turbidity and other changes in the aquifer as a result of the extra gas migration. That then impacts your water and makes it undrinkable and useless. That's not what they're referring to.
And also possibly the surfactants they use, the winter soaps that kind of...
We got more than gas.
That exactly, that are coming out as bubbles and soapy stuff, which is being injected into the earth.
Well, I want to container for a second. How come you guys, certain companies, make them put complete containment units around all the frac tanks? And Cabot can take their diesel tanks, their frac tanks, and just drop it on the ground and spill whatever they want to spill.
There've been a lot of reported spills.
They've had multiple spills.
I watched a tank across from my house leak for 3 weeks, and I complained to them for 3 weeks about that tank running. I watched them put chemicals to that tank, I watched them refill the tank back up, I watched the tank run right back up on the ground. They did that for 3 weeks.
That's just less they had to spray on the road.
But I've been on the drill site.
Yeah.
I don't want to say who or whatever, all right, but I've been on other companies.
Well,
And they complete containment units around all the diesel tanks and around all the frac tanks.
You know, that's the difference between a good company and the one that's going to go above what the regulations require. The regulations are really designed to set up minimum standards for safety. And good companies will take additional precautions to do the secondary containment you're talking about, a line.
Right.
Aren't you rewriting regulations?
Well, we're in the process of
doing that in some cases. And what I will also say at this point is when you see that, I want you to call Scott or myself directly. So So, I actually say that to across the state, but, I don't meet with, you guys get, at this point, let me finish. You guys, at this point, have my personal attention. And I can't do that for everybody in Pennsylvania. I can do that for everybody in this room. And so, if you see that kind of problem or other problems, I want you picking up the phone or emailing Scott or myself and saying, hey, and we will respond.
I think we ought to make it a law or something, Montrose, where they have to put containers.
It's a good thought. It's a reasonable suggestion.
We've had all the diesel fuels spilled down on Teals.
We have a half a dozen spills.
You know, the spills across the street from me, up the road from me.
Maybe 20 spills.
You know,
There's
containment
probably
system
another
was there.
20 we don't know about.
It'd be contained.
Scott is writing the suggestion down.
Well, what we're curious in knowing, because it was a big issue we talked about before, and Victoria, I know, really wants to talk about it, but why can't you turn around to Cabot and say, you know what, we want you to, given the spills that you've had, we
Right.
want you to create containers around all your...
It's a fair suggestion. And I'm going to go back and ask Scott and others why we can't do that.
It's in there, there is a spill, and the residual truck can come in, clean it up, and take it where it needs to be taken.
I have a pit on my mountain, there by the either 1, 5, and 7. 7 they drilled illegally because my husband never signed papers. My son-in-law never signed papers. But yet you guys issued them a permit without my husband even knowing about it. I'm his wife, I don't know anything about it, and they put the drill up there. I've got crack water in the pit since November when Kevin walked away. It's still there, it's starting to dehydrate, the liner is just all screwed up, dried out after the water's in there. This is Maine. They haven't cleaned it up. They have not cleaned it up whatsoever, and it's still there.
Which runs downhill
This is at the
to our property.
87.
It's 81, 5, and 7 on the top of my mountain.
Bill.
Plus, another thing, Scott, they have, on the signs here where you guys have the permits for them and they're issued, they've crossed out, like 1, it used to have 1H, and now they crossed it out and put a B. Number 5, they crossed it out, and they have an H by the 7, which is supposed to be a vertical. So what gives them the right to just magic mark it out, the number?
It's actually not a regulatory requirement to kind of put that kind of notification.
But aren't the
on
permits
there.
supposed to match the number of the wells that the landowner signed?
We have permit numbers, and then you have like farm name numbers that are just a little bit, that are just different. The permit number that we record is just not necessarily the same thing when they say.
Isn't that the number that Cat gives you on the paper that you signed and say it's okay for you to drill? Those numbers are supposed to be the same, aren't
And
they?
we assign the permit number upon issuance of the permit, and so is when they're applying for it, they may call it whatever it is that they want to call it, but we assign it an API number upon issuance of the permit.
What if your numbers don't match, like on ours, they don't match?
Then they've got an improperly tagged well.
So you've got to check them out too for all of the ones I need.
This man behind me is telling me, and it's the same one, he's confirming, that it's constantly leaking from the top of the hill behind their, on top of their property.
We're going to have somebody,
It's fine, all of our houses.
we'll be there. I just told Scott I want this looked at tomorrow.
And I've heard Chieftain, which is not the biggest company in the world, but they've got all of these containers around their processes to catch spills and fluids and all of that. And I've seen films, I've been to lectures, and I was shown how these things are typically set up, and they all have containment systems. I mean, I think it's a minimum standard to have containment systems, because where you're going to have fluids, you're going to have spills. I mean, it starts at your kitchen table, that kind of thing.
Typically are contained. It's an excellent point. Scott's got it written down, and we're going to go check it.
Can I just make sure that besides the Ely 1, 5, and 7, the well sites that you're referring to, are those the same that you had referenced that someone behind you was saying that is it the same location, or are you talking about something?
We're up behind the house. Right.
If he will.
Yeah, that would be my, that's what I'm talking about, the 157,
Okay.
because that's right behind your house.
That's my house. Victoria.
Well, no, we're just, you guys are good, because it's right there.
I have a request. I would like all pits exhumed and removed from our area. Every one of these wells has a nasty secret. I know for a fact that 4 pit up there had buried in it, off the chart. All these pits, if we're ever going to live and have any peace of mind in the affected area, we need those bodies dug up and taken away. These pits were buried with leaking liners. I witnessed at least 6 of them in that condition early on, and they all were buried. Now, I will never sleep well knowing that that stuff is buried all over this area. It just adds one more problem to our situation. When will what was in that pit get to my well? You know, you can control the methane, but we have all these pits. Other companies aren't doing the pits like this. There's another sloppy thing that Cabot did, and we have to live with. You could help us with that. You could demand that they exhume all the pits and do soil sampling around them.
What are they doing now? They're doing new pits? What do they do
They
now?
haul the sawdust and they haul in the landfill.
So they put them in tanks, so they're still creating new pits?
You still doing this?
They're still
They
doing
remove
pits.
it.
Some of them are like 29, they're just buried.
So, I mean, don't other companies do a better industry of removal where they go to tanks and then out, you know, more systematic?
Not necessarily. The cuttings themselves have to meet, like basically leachate levels. And the data that we've received so far of analysis of the cuttings that are allowed to be buried on site meet the regulatory requirements that we have in place for the leachate characteristics of those wastes.
What about the pits that sat there and leaked though for months and months before?
Obviously, any contamination of groundwater obviously is a violation of the law. And all I can say is shame on us for not catching it and
we can go out
shutting down the pits themselves. I mean, I know you guys all know Steve Watson and Mike O'Donnell real well, and I feel
Half
pretty
the
good.
inspector.
I feel pretty good that, I mean, I think you'd agree that they're 2 very conscientious people. And as you identify these things, you know, they're, in addition to myself, they're another valuable resource to let them know it's happening so we can address it immediately. Don't want to hear, I mean, I hate hearing stories about a tank leaking like what you were just talking about, but also it's the first time, you know, I've heard about it, and I want to make sure that the first day that you see something happen.
Let me just make sure I understand what Victoria was talking about. That there were pits. How many?
Well, every well has a pit, I believe.
So how many are we talking?
Well, we have 63 in the affected area.
The
That's a lot of pits.
And your concern is that they were filled, and you're concerned about how they were filled and what's in the.
I saw many of them prior to being covered over with leaking liners and pits.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is how many of these are buried secrets, what is in those pits. I mean, I know Ken Ely, bless his soul, if he were here, he could talk about what was in the pits that were on his property. So this is something to worry about. You know, I would like to live here in this 9 square miles, but I know those pits are out there. Can we get them dug up and taken away?
Well, I'm not going to say yes or no to any of that just yet, but I do now understand what your concern is. And you know,
Why should the company be allowed to leave that trash?
well, that's the first question is, do they have fill in there that doesn't meet the standards? And with this company, at this point, it's a fair question. And therefore, I've got it written down, but we'll talk about how to do it.
It would be relatively easy to do soil samples around those things. Relatively, and that would tell you a lot, I would think. It would cost you that
That's
much
a
to do it, and
good
then you see what was going on.
Good suggestion. Yeah.
Another thing is that we put up their fluid waste disposal or residual waste disposal, whatever they want to call it. There's an unbelievable number of residual waste trucks pulling out of these sites all day, all night, going who knows where.
More of them at night too, the traffic.
Awful
increases
lot
at
of
night.
night. I have a terrible insomnia problem from this, because the noise is incredible with all these trucks going up and down the road. And, yeah, but where's it going? You know, what are they allowed to do with it? It doesn't seem like any of the treatment plants are willing to accept it, so where does it go? And some of us.
Reusing it. That's what they say.
Reusing? Well, yeah, but I can't reuse that stuff.
Yeah, you can. Let Scott talk a little bit about some of that.
Saves water that way.
Some of the reuse technology. There is some technology that is allowed more reuse. Certainly 3 years ago, it was the case that I don't think anybody really thought it would be quote-unquote reuse. And there has been some important steps forward on technology that doesn't, in fact, allow some reuse. And I'll let Scott pick up from there.
Yeah, basically what they've determined is that the initial flow back, the constituents of concern are chlorides, and the initial flow back can be about as salty as seawater. And because they're getting only about, say, 1 million gallons or less back initially at that level, they can take it to the next site, mix it with fresh water to dilute it down to the point where they do some like filtering of sediment. They can even do some additional treatment to remove barium and strontium, but just some basic pH adjustments to remove some of those other chemicals. But they're able to then reuse the water, basically this dirty water that's just been diluted down by more fresh water. They're required to residual waste requirements. They need to report how much wastewater they're generating, and then where it went, and they have to tell us that. The transporter themselves has to keep records of the water that's been hauled out of there. If there's I think what's being suggested is basically like they're taking it and just dumping it somewhere.
It's been witnessed.
Been witnessed?
Yes, my sister followed a truck, she passed a truck at night, a tanker truck that had its valve open at the back, it was just dumping it on the highway. She turned around and tried to follow the truck, and she couldn't even catch up with it. But it emptied its residual waste along the highway. 6 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, when I was going to work last year, I followed a path of a truck that had come out of Baker number 1 well site, that its valve was obviously wide open because the whole road was just soaked all the way up the mile into Dimock.
I've seen that too.
And what do you do with something like that?
Anytime.
They can't call you at 6 o'clock in the morning.
No,
Well, I asked Cather about that, and they said, call the state police. State police are half an hour away, they're not gonna respond.
They were keeping the dust down, but it was raining.
This is a hard, it's the paved road.
They were keeping the dust down.
Look, a couple things. If you see a truck doing that, please get the license plate and any other identifying information. At that point, you are a witness of criminal activity. I'm not talking about civil, I'm talking criminal activity. And we will make a referral to the Attorney General of the state of Pennsylvania for prosecution.
Yeah.
So, now we need to get people writing down the name of the license plate, the time and place. You call me, you call Scott with that information, and we will make a criminal referral. And I believe it's been going on. I have yet found the evidence that allows us to throw the criminal book at somebody doing it. So we need to do it.
Do we have to take a picture?
The picture would be even better. The video would even be better. But no, you don't. I mean, that's even better evidence. But as long as you, as a witness, are willing to testify, write an affidavit, be interviewed by the Attorney General's office about what you saw, the truck number, we're off and running. At that point, we're off and running. And if there's maybe not a picture of the stuff coming out of the truck, but a picture of the road and it's wet, that's helpful. Doesn't win the case in of itself, by itself, but combined with your testimony,
Witness protection too, right?
sorry?
Witness protection after that?
Well, let me be serious about that.
Yeah.
Let me be serious about that. If anybody messes around with a witness, then that's another very, 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 very serious
All right.
offense. At that point, we're not talking about county prison for a month or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months. We're talking about state penitentiary for years. There isn't a prosecutor in the state of Pennsylvania who wouldn't take incredibly seriously any attempt to intimidate a witness. And I will be right there with that witness, okay? And the department will be right there with that witness. Anybody who does that, they are asking for a world of hurt. And I'm talking about, again, the state penitentiary because somebody does that.
A letter to Cabot from you guys stating that would be a good idea.
Okay?
Scott.
By the way, I'd like to do more in the letter if we can do more.
Over on Gesper, is there a proposed site for a tank farm to be there?
Well, they're allowed to keep tanks at the well sites.
They put a new pad above the one well. And I heard they're gonna put a residual tank farm in there.
Yeah, that's what that is.
Is that gonna be true or not?
Isn't that better than pits?
Not really.
Well,
They leak.
Not those frac tanks aren't sitting in a containment system.
Where is it in relationship to the well site?
Right above it. Right above it.
You got the hard place, you just get a bird's eye view.
I mean,
But the well sits here and they put a brand new pad right above it. And I heard they're gonna make that a residual tank farm.
above the, which one, Guestford?
Which one is that? Which one is that?
4 and 8 on the right side. Yeah.
4 and 8.
One down
4 and
there.
8.
You know what I'm talking about, Ron?
Yeah, 4 and 8.
Is that 4 and 8 there? I wasn't sure, but they just put a brand new pad above there. And I heard from somebody else that they're gonna make that a residual tank farm.
I wonder what they're doing.
Okay, and that's got me kind of bothered if they're not gonna be putting a containment system underneath those frac tanks.
All
Because
down,
we're gonna be having spills.
all downhill to Burning Creek,
And
right?
that's all gonna come right to the creek and that's all coming right down to all our properties again.
That's right upstream.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if you would have the standards of any new work that you work right here.
I mean, they just put this pad in 3-4 weeks ago. And it's a good sized pad.
That is part of the problem, the natural drainage. If you visit these well sites, they're all located conveniently next to a spring, a creek, a wetland, and every pad has a ditch that runs to the nearest water source. So when anything is spilled, anything happens on these sites, it's a great way to get rid of it. That's what happened on the Teal, the first diesel spill. It ran right down the ditch
Right down
into
the
the
shore.
wetlands. There is no built-in plan to prevent that from happening. That's a necessary thing.
Well, if they had a
Future
containment system around the diesel tank, they'd never would have gotten in.
Your point about containment is a very good one.
But I'm just concerned about this being a residual tank farm, sitting half a mile from my house.
Well, it have to be, they're not allowed to drill there. So what else are they doing?
Right.
So it must be, it makes sense if that's what that is.
Right, but the problem is, if they spill and it's not contained, it's gonna run down on our houses.
It's not, yeah, it's not if, it's when, 'cause
Yeah. But I mean, I just heard that, I wanted to bring that one out, if that was true or not.
Well, we'll check. I don't think either of us, I certainly don't know.
Have you ever been out in Bradford County area?
Yeah, I've been out there, but I haven't seen your sites.
Have you ever been out to the Otten site?
No.
Take a ride to the Otten site,
Okay.
okay? That's a residual tank farm. And it's also a well. That's up on North Street. Okay, and that's the well name of it, Otten.
Is that where Sue just got killed out there, didn't it?
No,
Or is that?
okay? And take a look how that piece of property is ran. Maybe a good consideration for you, then we go after Cabot with it. You see how that's done there, then you force Cabot to do something.
You're saying it's done right.
No, it's,
That, they did it right.
no, it's pristine.
It's the way it should be.
Right.
And basically, we think that's how the better people in the industry in the state would want to operate. It would be a progressive way to approach the problem, so that, you know, you're balancing the environmental interests with, you know, the drill.
That's very helpful, to A, point to a potential problem, and B, point to an example where it's done, to use your word, in a pristine way. That's very, very helpful, I appreciate it, and we will follow up on both.
Did you know that prior to your department getting involved requiring Cabot to provide us water, that many of us met with Cabot requesting them to provide us water? Just wanted to know if you knew that.
Yes.
Actually, they just finally gave me water last week.
Most of us would have settled just for just water.
Now that we're back on the water
That's all we wanted.
situation, these here buffaloes that they provided us with the water in, are they requested or ordered to clean them every so often?
Question, Scott, you.
Does anybody know?
Mike, I think that, Craig, you and I had this conversation, and you requested that with Guy, what was his name? Guy Parrish, come and clean it out, and that's part of the contract, I think, that they've entered into.
How often? Is there a,
He told me that they come up with the conclusion that it's town water, and town water in the town is always moving, so it's never stored in one place.
Right.
So that's naturally occurring, some kind of sediment, some kind of thing in the bottom of that tank. Manganese, something, I forget what he said. And he said it is perfectly normal, it's healthy, nothing wrong with it at all.
Well, there's limits on it.
but is that here?
Yeah, I know.
The tank that they bring the water in, the top is off when they fill it.
Yeah.
They fill our buffalo at the house, the top is off when they fill it. Right
So
now,
that's an issue for you, is the maintenance of the water buffaloes. All right.
Well, who's paying the electric on heating that in the winter?
Yes.
Yeah, we're double.
Yeah, how much is that?
Our electric bill all went up.
At $100 bill a month.
That's right.
$100 a
There's no
month.
way in the world they should be, they should pay for that electric.
And they were supposed to reimburse us for that, and they never did. And they did reimburse the Ely's, and then they took it off their income tax, or put it on their income tax.
So the maintenance of the buffaloes, the electric bills
That's
for
not
running
a
them.
problem.
What else around the water buffaloes are issues for you?
running out.
Yeah.
Running out?
Now that
How many of
the
you,
roads overflow.
hold on a second. How many of you run out of water?
Ran out 4 different times.
I ran out every 2 weeks, or at least every 2 weeks.
Okay, that's a big issue.
I've had it overflow, they took off and went outside and come back in and had 2 inches of water over my drive. They said it didn't happen once, it's happened 2-3 times already.
Well, yeah, that's the same thing they do with diesel fuel, yeah?
Yeah.
Or have a smoke while it's running.
If you take a tire, and now they've got a cover over it, right? Insulating blanket on this cover. And it's 85, 87 degrees the other day. What happens to that water in there? It gets warm.
Bacteria.
And it's sitting there. If you're not using water in the house, it's just sitting there. And it's building bacteria in the bottom of the tank.
Yeah, and it's
The inside of those tanks get slimy.
Yeah, but outside, and it's getting hot. That can't be good for that water.
Secretary, I'm sorry to bother you. We're sorry to bother you, but frankly, we brought up these little details to them, and we try to do it in the nicest way, we send emails, and it's like, and then when I got on the phone with Mr. Cunningham the other day, I realized why nothing gets done. The only thing that I've ever heard them say is, you know, we'll give you some money so you move. Your clients may want to move. That's the only thing that I've ever heard from them at all. And I think they want to do everything to make it as uncomfortable for them as possible. So that when I was told, we had one client who wanted a water buffalo, even though the DEP hasn't ordered it, and And the guy told me, I said, why can't you just give it her? What's the big deal? He said, well, he said, I agree, it's good faith, it'll help us massage our relationship, it's a great idea. He says, you wouldn't believe the amount of emails that went around inside Cabot about that, and they refused to do it. It's like, and then we've let them know, could you, with the bills, could you, nothing. Zero on everything, just so you know, because you shouldn't be bothered with this. You've got so many things. It's great that you're here tonight, and I'm very much appreciate it.
Well, I need to be here. Obviously, Cabot is proving in so many different ways to...
They're insensitive, very insensitive.
That's a kind word.
Wouldn't
I'll
it
accept
be
it for right now.
prudent at this point that if anybody surfaced a potential water issue to DEP, to just automatically have a buffalo system and give them drinking water? And prove them wrong, prove it wrong, but err on the side of caution and just supply the families with the water right off the bat, without questions, without fighting. I mean, we didn't have an issue. We said we had a problem, and immediately they were down at our house forcing the water on us. We didn't even want it initially. But I would think, we've heard many of our neighbors, and not necessarily these in the room.
That's interesting.
But
How would that be? I don't know. Why did they respond to one set of complaints
I begged for over
and not others?
I didn't have a well, my well blew.
But
I had no water.
but this was later on, and this didn't happen until October, November last year.
It
After
doesn't
you had-
matter when it
Well,
happens.
but that's neither here nor there. What I'm trying to get at is that there are many neighbors, and not necessarily people in this room, who did have issues and who went to Cabot over and over and over and were refused water. And I'm just thinking, with all that's surfaced here, would it be a better way to just even advertise to the public that if you think you have a problem, go to DEP, and immediately DEP order the water so that they don't have to get in the fight with Cabot? Because a lot of people won't fight with them, or a lot of people try to, handle it on their own, and they're not equipped, and then they end up suffering in their families.
How many people do you believe have had water problems and have not gotten water but would like it?
Well, I'll tell you right now, the Mays had to fight a long time to get water.
All right, that's one that fought
That's-
a long
that's
time about it.
right.
How many folks do you think are out there?
I don't even know. I don't even know. I mean, how many folks are as diligent about testing their water? How many people can pay for it out of their pocket? How many people are gonna fight with Cabot to get the water
What
tested?
I would hope you would do at this point is have anybody who has a concern about their water call us, okay? That's what I can do tonight.
Excuse me, my son has his daughter and her boyfriend are living with him, and they have a little boy that's a little over a year old, and she's pregnant and gonna have another baby. Their water is smelly, and he has told them that he would like to have water because he's afraid. They go, give the baby a bath in it, the water smells.
Well, that would be a family mutual swap.
And they won't do anything.
Well, what I would like,
We gave a list of 4 families that are asking for it. They said they're not on DEP's list, we don't have to do
And
it.
he lives he's less than 1,000 feet from
all
that.
right, what I'm asking is, in that specific case, it was your son, I think you said?
Yes,
Would you please have him call us?
yes, I will.
Okay.
Call the number on the little card.
That's Scott Perry, you have to make sure you have his card when you leave here, have him call his office. And we will look into that and then figure out what needs to be done, okay?
Okay, thank you.
So let's get the calls going and get the information,
I have
and we'll go from there.
8 children, and I've been asking for almost a year and a half, and I've never gotten anywhere. I realize that,
You don't have water?
no, we've never gotten one in Cabot, no.
And you had the pre-testing, and now you've had the example of, you've had the reality of elevated methane. What other problems do you have with your water?
Ours isn't as bad as a lot of people's, but
She's
yeah, our methane has
surrounded by
gradually gone up.
Sorry.
You're surrounded by it.
I would like to hear, just for a moment, what the problems with our water are, just for a second.
It's showing up a lot of the same things that everybody else has, a lot of the same metals and minerals and barium, stuff like that, just lower levels.
We've
Same kind of thing.
tested this, I'm sorry, what's your last name, is it?
Farnelli.
Farnelli, thank
Yeah.
you. I know we've tested your water
Yeah.
on several different occasions.
Right.
And our test results, I think one time it showed that iron is higher than the safe drinking water act levels, but the test results that we've had every other time have shown that all of the things that we've tested for have been at or below the the Safe Drinking Water Act levels.
It's only been maybe once every 3 months. I don't usually get results back for 9 months. My kids were getting sick and it looked awful suspicious.
When was the last time your water was tested?
It was just recently, but that was the first time in 3 months. It was just a couple weeks ago.
Okay. Well, one of the issues that we have is making sure that we have good data and there's reasonable testing going on, and we're going to talk about that. I think the department has a role to play in documenting what's going on with the water going forward. We're hopefully going to have improving water because of the steps being taken here. And we're going to need to figure out how the data that's going to be collected, the testing that's going to be done, and that's one of the issues. So I appreciate you raising that with us.
When you hooked up our water buffalo, you actually hooked our well and water supply, because we use our existing pressure tank. There's no way to really test our water unless we need to replumb things.
Okay.
Set it up differently. We have no idea what our well water is actually like at this point.
So that's what this is.
There's no any kind of valve or anything like that.
Some of them only have a valve, okay? You shut that on, okay? And there's no valve in between there and my pressure tank. You just plumb it into my pressure tank. You want it to move. The line's not broken anywhere. The only way you can possibly test my well is to shut off the buffalo, turn my water back on, and run through my plumbing, which I'm not willing to do.
Yeah, I do.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, you need to put a valve on the other side of my pressure tank. They could actually put drain water from my well and do some testing. I'd like to see that.
Well, I definitely think that we're agreeing that your supply is contaminated, right?
Yeah.
So the water that they provide must meet the Safe Drinking Water Act standards. So I think one of the issues that we're wrestling with here was testing water supplies where folks don't have buffalo and determine the quality of that water, and then ultimately testing water supplies after whatever solution you come up with so that the water coming out of your tap meets those Safe Drinking Water Act standards. So the water buffalo, we've got a couple of issues with that regarding routine maintenance, needing to control the water buffalo, as well as paying for extra electricity to heat it through the winter time.
Mine's inside, I have an issue. Mine's inside my home, I have an issue.
Could you also, if they decide to install more of these water buffalo systems into people's homes, require that they use licensed plumbers?
Use what?
Licensed plumbers or electricians, as opposed to just their crew? Seriously.
In other words, it's a serious comment. So have there been problems when they've installed these water buffaloes?
The men installing them struggled because this is not what they do for a living. It's not what they were trained to do. I mean, we're kind of fussy about how we have things done in our house, and they're nice men, but they came in with blow torches and pipe cutters, and they're doing stuff, and the water is leaking, and they couldn't get the leak sealed, and cutting into your pipes at a couple different places. I mean, we don't do things like that. You know, everybody that does work in our house is trained to do that. And so it's just like for future reference that it would be done by qualified people.
Our regulations are open on this exact issue. We can get them in immediately to address that going forward.
If you took the bottled water that you bought at the store and you took it outside, and it got warm and it got cold, and
Because it's out of the tap in Montrose, it's not been brought to your house and sitting there in a container.
yeah, you change the temperature, which is the worst thing you can do.
Well, I don't think it's safe to take a shower.
It encourages that
And I
too.
won't brush my teeth with it. I'm constantly opening up jugs of water.
You have to do
I won't
that.
give it to my
It's not
dog.
sterile, and it's not only
I won't
water.
rinse off any vegetables with it.
It's not an answer.
I can clean the floor with it, that's about it.
Yep.
You can do something fast.
Yeah.
Quick.
Are there other issues that we haven't covered that we want to get to?
Just
Yeah, how long would they, if they do put a well in some place, how long would they test that well before they give it to us for drinking water? Would
You
they
mean
test it?
if the ultimate solution is a central well?
Right, right.
I don't know.
You know, you'd be a community water system then, and there'd be required, an entire level of rules would be laid on top of it.
And that's why he's doing all these individuals, yeah, central location.
Right. It would seem so good, wouldn't it? They have the water come through the sink that you could trust.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
I want my wall back.
What's
It's
the
got,
criteria to get the water replaced? Is it like a methane level, or is it a certain amount of contaminants, or?
Well, first of all, if they haven't done a pre-drilling survey, and there's any exceedances of safe drinking water act levels, that's all that needs to be there. If they do a pre-drill survey, there has to be basically an elevated level from the contaminant that they tested for.
What about methane? Is that anything?
Yeah, methane does, basically, if there are elevated levels of methane, basically above like 5 milligrams per liter, then we're going to presume that they've caused that.
I just, I'd like to give you these because it just, sometimes a picture's worth 1,000 words. And that this is an example of, these are DEP photos. This is an example of a spill that happened on a drilling platform of benzene and all the cleanup that was on and everything, just to reinforce the issue that most of these accidents are going to happen where they're doing their work, which is where the fluids are in either pits or on platforms, on the work platforms, and why the containment is really an important concept. Sometimes picture something worse.
yeah, would you say it's normal to have chlorinated water in your house that would make your skin so dry that you peel? Or do you think it should be something that's lined inside my pipes from the water like this, that's been coming through my pipes for a whole year, and it's all coated?
Because our pipes were clogged.
I mean, they were clogged, yeah.
You guys have seen it, our attorneys have seen it.
I mean, our skin just peels all the
You
time.
have a chlorination system on your.
I got a water softener in my basement, but we don't use it because, it's on the other side of the system now.
The water that they're providing in the
Yes.
Buffalo is got too much chlorine in it.
And they put a filter there to take the chlorine out, which doesn't do anything at all. But, I mean, our skin just peels all the time. I'm just wondering if it's the chlorinated water, or is it something in my pipes from having this water for a whole year?
Does anyone ever test that water? I mean, at least you.
Oh, yeah,
Quantum
Quantum does, and it's perfect every time.
Who does it?
Quantum, they test it.
For Cabot or who?
They hired Quantum, which is a lab.
Doug, can you
We
explain?
need to address this issue of the test.
I'm tired of this. I mean, my son's got, on his feet. My daughter's got eczema sores on her elbows. I mean, you just get skin peeling off you all the time. Tired of it.
Doug has a little bit of an explanation. I mean, we've gone over this, these
the water
conditions,
buffaloes?
turbidities. Are you talking about from the water buffaloes?
I mean, is it something?
The water is coming from the water
Oh,
buffalo.
I see.
I mean, we're using the water buffalo now.
Yeah. We did test the water buffalo, and it did come up, nothing came up over standard for that. It could be other things you're sensitive to in it, I don't know, but we didn't do anything in it that we tested for.
Have you tested that at the tap?
We
That's
tested
the right word.
We tested it from the tank directly, not from as it goes through the piping.
I mean, I know we clogged up everything in my house. I mean, the washer, the washer, the dishwasher, all my faucets, my toilets, everything. I mean,
The original water from your well.
Yeah, when we use it. And we use this water for a whole year, with the filtration system on there. And we know stuff went through it, I have to go in behind the washer and take the hose off every once in a while and unclog it. And that was with their big system that they put in there. I mean, if you take a pipe right now and just cut it right off, you can just see it right in there. It's almost like solid peanut butter in there.
Yeah, and the same with our well, not only do we have a quality issue, we have a quantity issue now. Now, when we do turn on the well, for Mike to come down and test, it used to run 8, 9, 10 hours or more, I don't even remember. 2 hours and 15 minutes, our well was done.
Right.
So I believe that the clay material that he's talking about is clogging the orifices in the well and the fissures or whatnot.
And it takes, when we drain the well like that, if we drain it dry, it takes over 12 hours to fill it back up again. Over 12 hours. And we're putting out, I think we're putting out like 8 gallons a minute or so. And it still takes that long to fill back up again. It's 500 feet deep, but.
So I guess one thing I want to add to that, is everybody doesn't want to be, this is the problem with in-house systems, you have to become an in-house water manager. You know, you have to know how to run a treatment system and deal with all the issues. And it's been absorbed in their life, so there are anecdotal examples of why, you know, you might be able to pull out clean water that way, but it's, you know, it just creates a lot of other
Even these
living
are causing a
hazards.
problem, you know how much is it if we get rid of this stuff?
Oh, bless.
The cases, the plastic.
Yep, once we make a trip to the recycling center, which we normally wouldn't be doing, so there's just constantly, you know, something that we normally wouldn't be doing. Whether it be maintaining the system, letting people in to test the, you know, the water, bringing us water, because I have to take my German Shepherd out, because he won't be in the same, you know, room as the person delivering the water, or he can't be. So I have to stop what I'm doing and, of course, take him out. It's just total invasion.
So, is there anybody else, or we finished, or do they have
Something on every side, or would you?
Would there be any reason to have an evacuation or emergency plan? I was in Chapel a long time ago and asked them if there was anything we needed, like a assistance, to know if there was something going on that we could.
Methane, it could involve immediate notification of like emergency responders to have appropriate, you know, reactions. So it's not. I think the comment was made earlier that Cabot was, you had talked to Cabot earlier.
We did.
And it was only after your communications that we basically found out what was going on. This new system that we're putting in place is going to flip the responsibilities now, rather than letting an operator like Cabot sit back and try and sweep things under the rug a bit. They have an affirmative duty to take all kinds of different actions, investigating their own wells up to, you know, a quarter of a mile away, notifying us, notifying emergency responders as necessary, installing monitoring equipment as necessary, doing all of these things affirmatively rather than just waiting, sitting back and going, well, DEP, do we have an order yet? Do we have to go out and do it yet? So we're flipping those burdens as part of this new regulation package. And this is actually going to be the other part of our conversation with all companies on May 13th. We're going to talk about what we're expecting now people to do as far as investigating methane problems, rather than having this situation with DEP. Well, we're going to continue to do our work. We're expecting action from these companies immediately, rather than just waiting and trying to cover up and maybe protect themselves from liability things. It's not us. We're not responsible. Defensive posture game. We're turning those tables to make them, you know, basically demonstrate affirmatively that it's not their problem.
That's
With us looking over their shoulder.
Because we only have one change in our lives, you know, we had BC before Cabot, and now there's Cabot. So, you know, a lot of things have happened since they came to town. Prevention is the key, though. You know, I have felt DEP's reactions have been after the fact. You know, I always think of Smokey the Bear, how you can prevent forest fires. Instead of trying to put out all these fires, I wish we could have prevented. And I think that goes back to the permitting, a lot of that. Seems like an awful lot of permits just flew up. We had 27 wells in the blink of an eye, and I turned around and we had 63. My gosh, that was pretty reckless, I think.
Well, again, we talked about what basis under the law statute permits can be denied, and it's limited basis, and we can't deny a permit unless it's one of those essentially two categories for denying a permit, and that's the state statute that we're operating under. It's a fair point that you're raising about whether or not that there ought to be further bases for denying a permit. Your point about being proactive is also very important, and Excuse me.
Someone's telling you.
You have a skill in Springville.
So, what we are doing now is, in fact, trying to get ahead of as many of these issues as possible. We are, in fact, strengthening our rules and regulations to head off as many issues as possible. And where they occur, we are, in most cases, have a company that actually wants to fix the problem. Here, we've had a company that doesn't seem to be interested in fixing problems.
So what's happened in Dimock is going to help everyone else.
It is.
That's good.
Well, that's what we're hoping for, we really are.
Can I just get a little thing I don't think I mentioned before about the water system? We don't want Kevin running our water system. We would like to create, once we come up with a solution that we all agree with, if hopefully we can all agree with, then create a fund. Let the municipality run the water system, let Cabot pay for it. So that there is, money goes into whatever they call it, a bond or something, that would then run the water system. Because Cabot may be gone in a couple of years. They're not in the business of running municipal water systems. And we would ask that we think that a little bit, just in terms of let them finance it, but don't put them in charge of running our lines.
Okay.
They can't drill gas right, how you think they can run water right?
The one other
Well, they're not honest.
thing that I think is important to bring up, and I don't know if it would be with DEP or whatever, but, the people in Dimock and the people that have wells that were affected, I feel that they've kind of gotten a double whammy. Okay, one, their lives have been disrupted with the water and the environmental issues, and obviously you can never put a price tag on water or your environment where you live. But, some of these people only off the $25 an acre, their lives were taken over. Some of these people need this royalty money. Some people retired based upon the royalty money. Some people, they're struggling to keep their family farms, and now we're going in, and yes, we're plugging wells, which is the right thing to do, but that would be their royalty money that you're now shutting down on them. And I would think that if there's gonna be a well that's plugged because Cabot did shoddy work, that maybe we could somehow think about compensating the people's lives who are now being affected, not only with the water issue, but now you've just taken a revenue source away from them. And I think that's something we have to think about.
I have a suggestion, you join our
lawsuit.
I'm not talking for myself, and I don't want to be a part of your lawsuit, no offense, but I'm just thinking about neighbors.
That's a private action.
Who retired, or neighbors who are struggling to survive that could use something.
I appreciate what you're saying. There's some things that we can address, and there's some things that the Department of Environmental Protection cannot address.
Right.
And we're going to do everything we can with this company to address the environmental issues that have been very clearly stated here tonight. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to deal with the netting that's in front of us.
Is there a law or anything that determines how close they can put a gas well, drill a gas well to a private water supply?
They're required to keep 200 feet away.
And that's it?
Yes, that's the law, right?
And the Oil and Gas Act was passed to drill wells.
I figured that one out.
That's why 90% of the wells in this room are destroyed because of the distance that they're required to stay away.
Yeah, of course.
Are you 200 feet away? Are you 200
It's
feet
the
away?
water well distance
What's
from
that?
the gas well.
Yeah.
Well to well.
Is your water well 200 feet away? And his is pretty close.
It should be 5,000 feet.
How many feet is your well, or not? Go ahead.
Less than 500 feet.
Yeah.
Okay, you've given us a lot, and I appreciate the time that you had together here. We've got a long list of issues to sort through. We're going to talk on the way back, Scott and I, and we need to be back in touch with you. We need to have further communication, specifically around this issue that you've asked about the water replacement, the time schedule, and your sense that a new, what I'll call community water system is the answer. So we will take all of that back and get back to you.
Can I have one more
Sure.
request? Could we have another visit with you in about 6 months? Revisit these things, see how we're doing and what's going on?
Absolutely.
Why 6 months?
Give a little time.
Well, they give us 30 days, why can't we have another meeting in 90 days?
Thank you very
Here's a well at night after this meeting with DEP Hangar. I went and drove down towards Dimock, and I'm looking at a well here I'm on Campground Road. And the lights are on. Don't know the name of this site. I'm trying to find out. I just spoke to a neighbor. She doesn't know either. This is what it looks like at night. It's off in the distance there.